Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. At least 6 more Palestinians in Gaza have starved to death in the past 24 hours as famine spreads across the besieged Strip. At least 181 Palestinians, including 94 children, have now died from hunger-related causes in Gaza. Meanwhile, Israeli forces killed at least 92 Palestinians Sunday, including 56 who died while seeking food and aid. Another 34 Palestinians have been killed so far today. On Sunday, an Israeli strike hit the headquarters of the Palestinian Red Crescent Society in Khan Yunis. 1 staff member was killed. Meanwhile, Israel has asked the Red Cross to intervene and help provide food and medical treatment for Israeli hostages in Gaza. The call came after Hamas and Islamic Jihad released videos showing 2 emaciated hostages. The Palestinian groups denied the hostages were being intentionally starved, but a spokesperson for Islamic Jihad said, quote, "They will not receive any special privilege amidst the crime of starvation and siege," unquote. The broadcast of the hostage videos prompted a new wave of protests in Israel, calling for an end to the war and the release of all the hostages. Tens of thousands of protesters were in Tel Aviv on Saturday night. This comes as the Israeli military is threatening to expand its war on Gaza. A group of 600 retired Israeli security officials have written a letter to President Trump to urge him to pressure Israel to end the war. Signatories include 3 former heads of Mossad. In Gaza, a grieving mother shared this message for President Trump after Israeli forces fatally shot her 16-year-old son while he was seeking aid.
Trump wants us to send a thank you letter. What thank you letter does he want us to send him? Let him come and see my little son, a child. This is my 3rd son. A month ago, 1 killed, and this 3rd one killed today. He went to get food and drink soaked in blood. Go see the flower throne filled with the blood of people who were killed, and the martyrs lying there.
Israeli authorities are continuing to refuse to release the body of the Palestinian activist Oda Havalin, who was fatally shot by an Israeli settler last Monday in the occupied West Bank. Israel's also still detaining 7 members of his family. 60 Palestinian women from the village of Al-Khair began a hunger strike Thursday to demand justice. On Sunday, Israelis also held demonstrations in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem to protest the killing of Havalin, who worked on the Oscar-winning film No Other Land. Meanwhile, Israeli authorities have released the settler accused of killing Havalin, Yinon Levy. He'd been under house arrest. Earlier this year, the Trump administration lifted the Biden-era sanctions on Yinon Levy. Meanwhile, Israel's far-right National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir has sparked outrage after he led a large group to pray at the Al-Aqsa Mosque in occupied East Jerusalem. Jordan decried Ben-Gvir's visit, calling it a flagrant violation of international law, unquote. Mass protests against Israel's war on Gaza continue around the world. In Australia, as many as 300,000 people marched across the Sydney Harbour Bridge in one of Sydney's largest protests ever. Participants included the formerly imprisoned WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. Here in New York, about 50 Jewish activists and their allies were arrested Friday while protesting at the offices of New York Senators Chuck Schumer and Kirsten Gillibrand to denounce their votes against halting arms shipments to Israel. The bill was sponsored by Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. In Texas, Republican Governor Greg Abbott is threatening to arrest and expel Democratic state legislators from office if they don't return to the state capitol by this afternoon. More than 50 Democrats left Texas to block the passage of a new congressional map, which was gerrymandered to give Republicans 5 extra seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. Governor Abbott was reportedly hesitant about redrawing the state's congressional map until Trump called the governor and pushed for it. This is Democratic State Representative Ron Reynolds.
And today, in the spirit of John Lewis, I decided to make some good and necessary trouble by breaking quorum, because the Abbott-Trump takeover is not acceptable on my watch. I am here today to stand up for our democracy, stand up for black and brown Texans that will be disenfranchised by this hostile racial gerrymandering.
President Trump fired the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics Friday, hours after the agency released a weaker-than-expected jobs report. Trump wrote on social media the numbers were, quote, rigged in order to make the Republicans and me look bad, he wrote. Trump presented no evidence suggesting the numbers were rigged. Trump's firing of Erica McIntyre was widely criticized. Former Treasury Secretary Lawrence Summers spoke to ABC Friday.
This is the stuff of democracies giving way to authoritarianism. Firing statisticians goes with threatening the heads of newspapers. It goes with launching assaults on universities. It goes with launching assaults on law firms.
The Corporation for Public Broadcasting has announced it's shutting down after President Trump signed a law clawing back $1.1 billion in funding for public broadcasting. Most staff positions are set to end next month, and a small transition team will stay until January to close out any remaining work. The CPB was founded in 1967. Helps pay for PBS, NPR, and 1,500 local radio and television stations across the United States. Stations in rural and poorer areas of the country rely heavily on the CPB's grants to operate. Many are expected to close. In international news, the UN's migration agency says at least 68 Ethiopian migrants have died and 74 others are missing after a boat capsized off the coast of Yemen. There were only 12 survivors. In recent months, hundreds of migrants from Africa fleeing poverty and conflict have died or gone missing in shipwrecks as they attempt to reach wealthy Gulf Arab countries through Yemen. Former Colombian President Álvaro Uribe has been sentenced to 12 years of house arrest after being found guilty of witness tampering and bribery. Uribe was convicted of bribing imprisoned members of paramilitary groups to coax them into retracting damaging testimony exposing his ties to right-wing paramilitary groups. Uribe was a close U.S. ally who ruled Colombia from 2002 to 2010. In news from Washington, D.C., the Office of Special Counsel says it's probing Jack Smith, the former Justice Department official who led the investigations of President Trump's efforts to overthrow the results of the 2020 election. Smith's being investigated for potentially violating the Hatch Act, which prevents federal officials from participating in political activity. The Office of Special Counsel opened its investigation at the urging of Republican Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, who claims Smith was trying to influence the 2024 election. A federal judge has blocked the Trump administration from quickly deporting immigrants who were granted parole to live and work in the United States. The Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights, the Undocu Black Network, and CASA challenged the Department of Homeland Security's policies in court, which enabled ICE officers to arrest immigrants who were offered temporary protective status at the ports of entry in the U.S. The Biden administration had allowed Cubans, Haitians, Nicaraguans, and Venezuelans a legal pathway to immigrate to the United States, but in March, the Trump administration revoked parole for those groups. More than a dozen states filed a lawsuit Friday to block the Trump administration from investigating hospitals and doctors who provide gender-affirming care to children. The complaint argues in attempting to prosecute medical providers, the Trump administration's trying to put in place a national ban on puberty blockers, hormone therapy, and surgeries for transgender children. Earlier this year, President Trump signed an executive order banning federal funds from going to medical schools and hospitals that provide gender-affirming care for minors. Currently, more than half of all states have laws that restrict or outright ban transition care for children. Ghislaine Maxwell has been moved from Florida to a minimum security prison camp in Texas just days after she met with Deputy U.S. Attorney General Todd Blanche, formerly President Trump's personal attorney. This comes as pressure grows on President Trump to release files about Maxwell's longtime associate, the serial sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. Maxwell is serving a 20-year sentence for conspiring with Epstein to sexually abuse and traffic young girls. And more than 3,000 union members who assemble Boeing's fighter jets in Missouri and Illinois went on strike today after contract negotiations failed. The International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, District 837, the union that represents the workers, says the strike is, quote, about respect, dignity, not empty promises, unquote. The work stoppage comes after the union rejected a contract offered by Boeing. According to the union, the workers assemble and maintain weapon systems, missile and defense technology, and aircraft, including F-15 and F/A-18 fighter jets. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.